Now, I don't know what the ratio is of male versus female viewers here for the 700 Club, but I'm sure there's a lot of guys who watch the show. And I'm going to say something that's going to kind of knock you back a little bit. At least it knocked me back. I wasn't too sure how comfortable I felt when I read this in the Bible. But apparently, I'm the bride of Christ. And if you're a guy, you're the bride of Christ. And we're left wondering, what in the world does that mean? How can I be the bride of Christ? Well, we know that he's not talking about man or female. He's talking about us as the church, as those who come to believe in him. We are the bride, and that means that he is the groom. So what we have to do is we have to understand what the responsibilities of the bride were and what the responsibilities of the groom were. And to do that, we've got to go back and look at what a wedding was like during the first century, not the way it is today. Because today it's completely backwards from the way it was done back then. Today, the bride is the star of the show. You know, the guy does nothing. All he does is he asks her to marry him, and he's glad she said yes, and he shows up for the day, and that's pretty much it. But then when the wedding day arrives, the bride is dressed in white, and when she comes in the door, the doves are released, the trumpets are sounded, and everybody looks back at her, and everybody forgets about the poor guy standing at the front, the groom. So that means that the bride is the star of the show. Now, hang on a second. We go to the Bible that says that we're the bride. Does that mean that we're the star of the show? Absolutely not. But in order to understand what they're saying here is we've got to go back to the first century and see what a wedding was like in that time. And in that time, it's exactly what you're thinking. The roles were completely reversed. It was the man who did everything. The man did the proposal. The man, he even selected the place where the wedding was going to be. He picked the place to build the home. He built the home. Ladies, he even decorated the home. It was the man who did everything. The groom was fully responsible for his bride. And so if we're the bride and he's the groom, he's responsible for us and not the other way around. So let me quickly take you through the beginning stages of a marriage betrothal, just to help you understand what Jesus did for us as the groom. You see, in the natural, what would happen is that the groom, the potential guy who was going to get married, had to approach the father of the bride and not just ask permission to get married like we have to do today, but he actually had to establish a covenant with that father. He had to prove beyond the shadow of any doubt that he could provide for her, that he was the right one for her. He was going to give her a good life. And if the father approved that covenant, he would allow the man to go to the next stage. And that next stage was to offer a price for the bride. And guys, don't think that a guy could walk in and give a lowball offer. He had one shot to impress the father. He had one opportunity to make this woman his wife. You see, they didn't date in those days. They didn't have time to go out and get to know one another. They just had to know, this is the woman that God has for me. And so then this man would make an offer to the father. He would give the highest price possible. He would pay as much as he could, because the more he offered, the more it showed how much he loved his bride. Let's go back to that analogy of him being the groom, Jesus being the groom. He came, and at that Last Supper, he said, I've come to make a new covenant with you. And then he said, I'm going to pay the highest price. Greater love has no man than he who lays down his life. Jesus didn't take the easy way out. He knew the only way to pay the price was to give his life on the cross. And when he did that, he paid the price. He established the covenant with the Father. And we're going to see as we continue in this series, looking at these things, that we don't have to be afraid of the end times. We as the bride know that when the groom comes, he will care for us. He will provide for all of our needs. He will pay every debt. Amen? I'm Joe Amaral.